Welcome to the Fuse Film Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Call, and you're at the place where insight meets emotion in movie culture. It's your front row seat to the crossroads of Hollywood storytelling, media marketing, and pop culture nostalgia. Every episode this season, we're breaking down how movies are made, more importantly, how they're marketed and remembered, and how fandom shapes the stories we love. We ask the big question: were the fans rewarded, and were the new fans created? Today, we're digging into Superman 2025, James Gunn's high stake reboots. And joining me is, look up, it's Major Zero, Mr. I Nerdja himself, Adam Joyner, and Mr. Terrific, Vactor from the Vactorverse. Thanks for joining me, guys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it. It's good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. For those who don't remember, Adam was one of the co-founders of Fuse Film, and then we snagged Justin somewhere along the way when we
We picked him up off. We picked him on the side of the road. He had a flat tire.
yeah,
We saved
Yeah.
him.
hijacked the Entertainment Overload
Remember,
podcast and
remember the truck fell and he caught it and he was naked. Wait, no, I'm sorry,
yeah,
that's the better Superman movie. But we'll talk about that
yeah,
later.
we'll get into that. So, guys, today we're talking about Superman, James Gunn, his high stakes reboot. He's trying to launch a new universe, a new DC universe. We're going to talk the box office. We're going to talk brand rehab. We're going to talk fan trust. We're going to talk about how this movie stacks up, in my opinion, to the greatest franchise launch of all time. And I'm not going to tell you what movie that is, but we're going to do some comparisons. We'll talk about it later. I'm going to tease it in that way. But let's dive in. So, first, I want to talk about the setting the stage. This movie was not just about having Superman punching aliens, punching through walls, saving kittens, or in this case, squirrels. I think I
Squirrels.
saw a squirrel.
Yeah, he thought it was
Um, this movie was about carrying the weight of the entire Warner Brothers board and the entire weight of the DC universe on its back. Black Adam, Flash, just all of these quote DCEU movies were tragedies. So this movie wasn't just about telling a good story. It certainly wasn't just about having a good box office or a great box office, but it's about restoring belief in a, the DC cinematic universe. So I'm going to ask the question as we get into you guys' thoughts about the movie. What was the mission here? Do you agree with that? Number one, do you agree that that was the mission, the goal? Is that what James Gunn and Peter Safran set out to do? Or do you think that this was just, at the end of the day, let's make money? Or do you think it's somewhere in between? Or was this even bigger? Was this like the Boston Red Sox winning the World Series or the Cubs breaking the curse? What was this movie about? What's the goal? What was the mission? I'm going to start with Vactor, and then we'll get Adam's take. So Vactor, hit it.
Well, I think all of these movies' job is to make money and to keep their corporations in business and to keep people buying and coming back to the theaters. But 100%, I feel like this was supposed to give us confidence in the rest of the DC universe that they're setting up. The confidence that we have not had with the Snyderverse. And before that, there wasn't even an attempt to make a cohesive universe. It was just, all right, let's put out these separate movies and see what happens. So I think the goal of this movie was 100% to give us a foundation for whatever this new version of the DC collective universe is going to be.
Adam?
All right. So first of all, this was not a Superman movie. I'm just going to say it was not a Superman. It was a world building movie, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there was some Superman elements in there, but to me, you could have taken any character and put him in that spot. It could have been Wonder Woman, could have been Flash, it could have been so I never really felt like I was watching a Superman movie. I felt like it was an extended television show. And I made a joke earlier. We had a lot of conversations before this. I felt like it was like the Superboy, the original television series that came on. They made a movie. They finally got a movie made about it on that part on that. But going back to kind of what you said about it's basically world building, and they tell you at the beginning, 300 years ago, there were, metahumans or superhumans have been here. So, I mean, I don't know. I think I would have liked it better to be its own standalone movie and not build a universe. I think there's an argument to be made for not building a universe and having everything be a multiverse. Basically, you're so tied in with it, and it started out great with in Marvel, Iron Man. They kind of built it, and now toward the end, they're really struggling, and they're going to have to reboot it, right? They just said they're going to have to. The Secret Wars is going to fix all. Is going to have to redo all that again. You get tied in with one character for 15, 20 years.
Yeah,
You
but
get old.
I think I'm going to cut you off there because I think the difference with Marvel is that they've got 50 plus movies and shows that they have hit the point of diminishing returns very successfully, I might add, to where they can do a reset, right?
Well,
This is a different story, right?
but
Because
that's what they're doing though. He's going to do this. I mean, what they're doing now. This movie plants that the universe is established, and now all the
right,
movies are going to be in this thing. So he's basically, as opposed to Marvel, where they started with Iron Man basically creating the universe, kind of like how Batman creates all his villains, kind of the
mhm.
same thing. Iron Man started what was going to start is happening. Now they're doing the same thing. He's created the universe. Superman was in this movie right here, and there's an established universe that's going to be
That's
the
right.
gun. It'll be the Gun universe, and I don't like it. It's kind of boring. We'll get into more of the other stuff in there. I didn't like any of the potty mouth that was in it. I mean, there's just a bunch of stuff in there. It did not feel like a Superman movie. It felt like a made for television movie in a universe, but also and back to, I'll get back to what Nada said. Comics themselves are a multiverse. You'll have Superman, Man of Tomorrow. You'll have Batman, Gotham. You'll have all these other ones. I think they would be better served to do that route. I mean, I'm not in charge of it. Make a
Well,
Batman movie.
they're
Anyway,
kind of doing that with the Matt Reeves Batman. They said that Batman's going to be separate
he's
from
not.
whatever
He's not.
Batman.
He's not. They just said that they just said they sent him two scripts. One was a standalone, and one is with Superman.
That's
And let me
false,
get
Adam. That's false.
That's 100% what happened. I guarantee.
No,
I mean, what it,
no.
I promise you. I promise you. All
I've
of that stuff. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that happened when we first learned that Ben Affleck was going to be Batman, and we all said that's totally
no.
not true.
So there's first off, he got the script from Matt Reeves for Batman 2. Okay. And he's reviewed it, and that project's already underway and all that. And it's the DC Elseworlds separate movie. There's the Batman Brave and the Bold, which has a director and there's writers, and they're working on the script and it's being reviewed. And James Gunn has said they will not start a production on a movie until there is a satisfactory script. He is sticking to that. And it's funny because Feige just came out and talked about the future of Marvel, and he's double downing on his process of, well, I'm never satisfied with anything, and we're just going to continue to evolve a movie even while it's in production. Hey, you know what? Everybody's got their thing, and it's worked for Marvel for the most part, outside of like maybe 20 out of the 50 things that they've done. Hey, it's a good batting average if you think about it. In sports, it's a pretty damn good batting average, and the billions of dollars they've made have would suggest that's the case. So I don't want to hear any snarkiness because they have made comic book movies what they are. But I'm going to get into the Marvel DC comparisons and all this kind of crap later. But we're talking about Superman, and I want to make sure that we keep the focus on that because I agree. I think the goal of this mission was to set out and world build. Do I agree that it was successful? Maybe for some people, and certainly when we get into the numbers, the audience sentiment and engagement and stuff, I think the numbers will suggest it was. But for me personally, it was not. The first time I saw the movie, I looked at my wife and I go, that sucked. I was texting Adam in the theater. I'm like, dude, don't even go see it. It's terrible. My 5 year old cried when he saw Superman getting the crap beat out of him. My 3 year old was completely disinterested halfway through the movie. Um, the Pocket Universe was arguably for me, like I wanted to throw up like in the
So
middle of like because that whole scene, like my wife who doesn't ever say anything bad about a movie, she looks at me and she goes, The minute he broke the glass, I don't understand why he didn't just fly out through the pocket universe. Why did we have to get that whole scene of him in the river with the green alien baby and all these other things? Like none of that was relevant to the movie.
So
And it wasn't. I mean, it was just another way to shoehorn crypto in. And by the
who
way, and these are
too
nitpicks, and
much
I'm just hold on.
too much dog. Too much dog.
Yeah, yeah,
I
we're
want to be
gonna
the
get
first
to
one to
that in a
say it.
minute, but this is just my biggest nitpick of the whole movie right here was the pocket universe scene with Superman. Please, you guys are more comic book like experts than I am. In this movie at all, did the supersonic hearing of Superman, was that a power that he had in the film? Because I feel like when he broke the glass, would he not have heard Mr.
Well,
Terrific and Lois just hanging out up there and been able to been like, oh, there they are. I'm gonna go and boom
I've
and
I've
end of
got one, but I've
you know
got
what I
one better
mean?
for you. I got one better for you. He did not win one fight without help. He did not
That's
win
true.
one
That's
fight
true.
without help.
Yeah.
There's not one fight, and then also, I want to be snarky. Who did a better splitting of the universe? The Legos when they did it and they all came together and they pulled the universe back together, or the this Superman? Because it's sort of the same thing. Remember when the Lego universe cracked in there and all of them got together and they pulled the universe back together? Very very reminiscent of what we saw there. I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed that better than I did
Yeah.
the Pocket Universe.
But circling back because I want to give my too long don't read review. At the end of the day, the movie was fine. I saw it twice. Movie's fine. It to me, it's like you said, Adam. I totally agree. It created a world I'm not interested in seeing. I'm not interested in seeing anything in it. Um, the only thing I liked, and we talked about this on our season one of the Fuse Film Podcast, our very first episode, when we talked about how we would reboot Superman, we all agreed that like the best way to reboot Superman is you don't do an origin. You pick him up right in the middle of his, 3 or 5, 10 years, whatever. You have different options you can go. And so I didn't mind that strategic storyline of, hey, we're 3 years into his journey. What I didn't like was he was kind of dumb. I felt like he was behind the eight ball the entire time. This was the same problem I had with Nolan's Batman. Like he's supposed to be the second smartest guy in the whole world, and yet he's being outsmarted at every corner, every minute. Even Reeves Batman, Robert Pattinson, the Riddler had him dead to rights every 5 seconds of the movie. Like it was just like, what are we doing here? So it's like this continues to be, I think, something writers struggle with, which is we have to dumb the main character down. And I just hate that because Mr. Terrific basically saved the day, if we're being honest. Like he pretty much solved every problem going on in the entire movie. Guy Gardner was probably my favorite character. Um, award for worst haircut ever, but it worked. Um, you know, Jimmy Olsen was probably my second favorite character. I thought they nailed him. Rachel Brosnan was the perfect Lois. If they put her in Superman Returns is instantly the best Superman movie ever made.
I don't know about Stalker Superman, but I I do feel like, and I'll nitpick the things that I didn't really care for, and I'll say this before. I said at the beginning, I did not care for the potty mouth at
Yes,
all, and
my
it was
kid.
a lot. I started counting because I saw it twice. I saw it first; somebody paid for it, and then I paid $5 to see it as a matinee. So I've seen it twice, and I was very cognizant of the language, right?
Yep.
And I don't think you want your 3-year-old or 5-year-old talking about super, you know what is what he said, and
I had
then
to explain a harem to my. I was like, oh
yeah,
great, now I'm gonna have to explain a harem. We'll talk about
well,
that in a minute, by the
yeah,
way, because I think
but
James Gunn's got a problem. Um,
yes, yes.
so
But then, yeah, he's about his spreading the seed.
spreading seed across the galaxy. It's like his
But
third movie wanting to do that.
you
So
know the thing is when you have someone who's such strong moral character that he's saving a squirrel and he's like, oh come on guys, I want to save this animal, which I appreciate that part of it, but for him to be so, I mean, it was just vulgar. I mean, they were just doing it to be vulgar, just to kind of get the
yeah.
PG-13 in there. I mean, this movie, and if you've seen the Creature Commandos, which I thought was great, I thought it was fantastic, very vulgar, but I knew going into it that was I would not let my children, my young children, watch that, and they're kind of creeping that. If you're going to have the realism of that, then why have so much cartoon in the other?
Mhm.
And we're going to probably talk about crypto, way too much crypto, and I don't want to spoil the after credit scene. I have zero desire to see Supergirl. I have none. I have no desire to see Supergirl. When she came in, said what she said,
I'm
and
actually
walked
really
out,
excited about that one, and only because like Justin bought me the comic book, and I actually really enjoy Woman of Tomorrow. I think it's really well done. So if it's 100% adapted straight out of that, like page for page, I'm all in.
they didn't.
So
He didn't go. He didn't go. Hey, you knew my dad. I'm supposed to repopulate the planet. He
yeah,
didn't. They didn't have that. She just picked up his dog, called him the B word, and then flew out. I mean, I mean, it's just. It was very. I don't know that part. It totally took me out of whatever. You know, if she'd have come in, hey, and she could have been gruff, but I think they should have been like he should have been like, hey, we need to talk about something. She just flew out. You know,
yeah.
he's over there. He collected his
I
dog. They're not going to have a conversation
I think
about his parents
I
at
think
all.
this movie in a nutshell struggled on what kind of film it wanted to be. Because there's part of the movie where it's like, hey, it's this really cool comic book movie. It adapts a lot from comic book. You see the robots and you see the pocket universes and Guy Gardner and Hawk Girl and Mr. Terrific and all these comic booky things that you like to see in a movie that's quote unquote faithfully adapting comics to screen, right? But then it wants to be a little bit of the original Superman movies where you have the romance with Lois and you get some of that. Um, it wants to be Smallville. It has a lot, it has a lot of beats from Smallville. I thought Luthor was great. Michael Rosenbaum for me has always been my favorite. Gene Hackman, that's just a different level that nobody can get to. But Rosenbaum was great in Smallville. But I
He's
thought,
actually in this movie too. He's one of
yeah,
the Raptors.
I
He's one
thought
of the
Nicholas
voices of the
Hoult was
Raptors.
was phenomenal, but and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like this movie struggled on what it wanted to be. It felt like it had so many complex plot threads that were just going all together. It was very blendered that it was I thought it was like a lot. It was a lot to ask of anybody. And I went to the movie with casual fans. Okay. And I want to be clear about this because I've written about this on our Substack, on our Fuse Film Stubs Substack. Justin and I've talked about this. I have always been worried about the success of this movie be, for one reason and one reason only. Casual fans. They have to be the one that buys into this stuff. And now I'm going to segue into audience sentiment and engagement in a minute. This movie has all the right metrics to say that people have bought into this universe. But those are all the people I think that would have bought into it anyway. But the people I saw it with were like, it was okay. I liked, I heard this from, I'm not kidding, sample of 10. They all said, I liked Man of Steel better. I liked a more real world of Man of Steel. I liked the idea that Superman was struggling more with not just his humanity, but also with his Kryptonian stuff. And I liked that he was able to beat his way through things. And they did not like seeing the vulnerable Superman. That was,
I,
I think, something that
I,
people really wrestled with.
I didn't mind him struggling. I didn't mind getting beat up by himself, basically, which was fine. I really that did not bother me. I even loved that they used the sun to heal him. That didn't bother me.
That
But
was fine. I was cool with that.
I was like, oh, that's exactly what he would do, and he'd fly right back out there and do it. But I don't know that just tonally of the whole movie, it was kind of like just it was all over the place. It could have been almost you could have broke it up into different movies and like the Justice Gang, that whole their whole thing was it feels like their whole thing was a comedic relief basically, and Hawk Girl was annoying, just screaming, and that's what she
I
was
didn't
doing. I mean, I
I didn't
thought
like that.
I mean it, and then she
Yeah.
killed the guy, which is on point for her, which I didn't have a problem with her killing, right? But just the looking at this, I mean, it should have just said Black Canary. Black Canary would have made more sense to
Mm.
me if you're going to have somebody yell like that. And they never really talked whether she's Thanagarian or is she reincarnated or is she an alien as well? I it's interesting who they chose to pick. And I think Peacemaker is hilarious, in which it contradicts everything I said about vulgarity. But Peacemaker is not Superman. I mean, I
But
got
you go
that's
into that expecting that. You
yeah,
go
yeah, yes.
into, like
I
you
knew
said,
right. I knew Peacemaker was going to be running around his tidy whities killing people. And my major complaint from Man of Steel was that he killed Zod. That was
Yeah,
it.
that was the
He, he,
yeah.
he should have thrown him in there. That's the problem. That's the only problem with those movies. The fact that it was real, all the other stuff. He should have thrown him in the he should have thrown him into the Phantom Zone and done whatever. It'd have been fine. I mean, the Lois was a little bit weak on that, but he looked great. He was, he had the build. That there was, I like Jarrell. I liked all those. I would go and go in there right now and watch Man of Steel right now. Those movies and even Batman versus Superman. Uh, right now, as opposed to going, I won't see Superman again. I won't own it. I won't watch it on digital. I don't care about any other stuff. Just they did not. I didn't get. Did you get chills one time watching that movie at all? I know Kevin didn't. And Vactor may
Yeah,
have
I mean,
just
Backer,
just
we need to let you kind of give you your
yeah,
because
because
you have a
Vactor's
very
going to be
unique
the
perspective. You're
yeah
going to
Vactor
kind of even us out here,
yeah
and
Vactor.
but
But
you
but
also
but
bring the comic book perspective from this
yeah
comic cook. So,
yeah
what did you think? You obviously told us, at the top of the show here that you felt like it did successfully create,
yeah.
this DCU, this new universe. Elaborate a little bit more on the movie itself. What did you like, and was there anything you didn't like?
What I liked was something that we haven't gotten from any of the previous Superman movies, I think. The fact that it wasn't afraid to be silly, and silly as in Silver Age comics, like when Adam was growing up, that era of having a dog flying around. And every other movie that we've seen, I think they would have thought, oh, it's ridiculous to show a dog flying. We can't have that. We can't have a kaiju. We can't have all this silliness. This movie, it was like, no, give us silly, embrace the silliness
Did, did
of,
did the pendulum go too far though? Because I don't have a problem with crypto at all. I just think there was too much crypto. I thought the fact that
I,
he was a
I
bad
don't
dog and him
I don't
fighting
think it
and
went too far because I think that the audiences are a lot more trained than maybe they were 20 years ago when the Marvel Universe started to have a lot of more outlandish things. I mean, Gunn sort of trained us with Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean,
yeah, oh,
I
100.
remember you and I
Oh,
sat in the room
yep,
at our job where we started this
yep,
whole thing, Fuse Film
yep,
Journey, and we joked about Guardians of the Galaxy. And you're like, they're never going to get a flying talking raccoon to work in a big giant tree. And sure enough, he made it work. Like, and
yeah, oh
I
yeah,
commend him for that. I mean, he was well
yeah,
done. But anyway, Justin, continue what you were
yeah.
saying.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, no,
oh,
that's
no
all right.
worries.
We
Yeah,
like to do that
that,
here on the show.
but and that was the thing going into the movie that from all the trailers, I saw that, oh, he's approaching this differently because it's like a comic book. And that's what I loved about it was
Mm.
that it was embracing that comic bookiness and not like, okay, we have to ground it in realism. We can't be silly at all. We have to be real, which has been obviously since the Nolanization of comic book movies, which that worked great in the Nolan movies. The it's I think as far as pendulums, the pendulum swung on the gritty realist side of things where they were trying to make everything gritty and real.
No, I
And
agree.
Well, one thing I loved about this movie, I will say, is on that note factor is, and we'll get into some Marvel comparisons here later, specifically one. What I hate about the Marvel universe right now is that they're still trying to answer the question post Endgame of who the Avengers are and all that. But it's like since Avengers Age of Ultron, they've been trying to address the Sokovia incident and the Battle of New York. And it's like they can't get over it. The people in that universe just can't get over it.
yeah.
Whereas like a pocket universe just literally split Metropolis in half in this movie, and everybody was kind of like, whatever. Perry White's like, send the story and da 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 da, and
Well,
things like
that
that.
one
So
guy's
like,
drinking
if yeah,
that one guy's drinking coffee. The kaiju's fighting in front of him, which is
yeah,
fine. Which is what would happen if you lived in Delaware Metropolis.
yeah. My
Uh,
favorite scene in this entire movie was when Superman was with Lois in the apartment or whatever, and there's like the battle going on outside it, and they're
Oh
having
yeah.
like a heartfelt moment. She's like, are you gonna get out there and like help them? No, no, they got it. Like I don't, they don't need me for this one. And it's those were things I enjoyed of like, hey, establishing like what this kind of world is, and
Mhm.
that hey, there is dragons, there are kaiju's, or my Callan calls it a dragon,
Monsters. Yeah.
and things like that. So, anyway, it's a an interesting new universe and stuff like that. We're gonna
Yeah.
pause, by the way, because I need to, because it looks like we're gonna get kicked out of this thing. Uh, this is just so great. I
I
love
was
it.
like, we have 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes so we can talk. So
Yeah. Let me just stop because I think that was a good stopping point. So we're going to jump into our next segment here because this is a marketing themed podcast. We're going to get into the data. So regional performance breakdown. I want to throw this out there. 122 million in the US, Canada, 95 million in international. Top international markets were UK, Brazil, Mexico, the Philippines, with a global total opening weekend of $217 million. That's in line with expectations. Um, we asked the question at the top of the hour, did Gunn successfully create a new universe for DCU? And did fans buy into it? The audience sentiment engagement metrics suggest yes. 87% Rotten Tomatoes audience score, an A cinema score. The post-track general audience was 90% positive. That's adults 25 to 44. High engagement with nostalgic fans and parents bringing kids, which is quite interesting because I brought mine and I regret it every day because they had to see somebody get shot in the head point blank. They had to hear a lot of potty words. So this is a hard PG-13 for anybody who hasn't, is questioning whether or not they should take their kids. Hard PG-13. The TikTok hashtag Superman 2025, as opposed to what were the monkeys hashtags in the movie? Hashtag Superman sucks or something like that, or
they
I don't
said super. You know what? They said super. You know what?
Super
Super
poop.
extra. Super
know.
extra. Super extra
Hashtag
without.
hashtag Superman SHIT. Got it. Yeah. I did think that was kind of funny that it was a bunch of monkeys in the pocket universe that were doing all that. Maybe they're doing some of this too. The Google Trends Peak Index was 100. Max search interest hit the weekend of July 11th through the 13th, which was stronger than The Flash or Shazam 2. Like the bar was low. And I will say that. I meant to say that at the beginning. I feel like the bar for this movie was low. Like, like they could, like, you couldn't screw it up.
Yeah, I don't
So
think anybody. I don't think anybody thought they were.
yeah,
Doing the next great epic movie. I think
yeah.
anything. I think you could have thrown just about anything up there and have been okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, the bar was low. Going into week two, I would tell you I was actually surprised that the drop wasn't more. It's holding at a 54% drop, which most franchise tentpoles sit between 50 to 60%. Even Jurassic World Rebirth actually only hit a 56% drop. So from week one to week two, competing against Superman. So I was actually impressed that, and actually when I was in the movie line, I saw a bunch of people I knew. I was like, "Hey, you going to see Superman?" They're like, "No, we're going to go see Jurassic World." So I was actually surprised how well that movie's still
I
competing
I
with
think
us.
this is I think
Yeah,
this is going to be a summer of movies. To be honest with you, I think
yeah.
there is. I think I
We
think
get we're getting a little bit of that back from pre-COVID.
I
Yeah,
was just going to say because of COVID,
yeah.
we're starting to go. And we have a deal at our movie theater that on Tuesdays they show all movies all day long for $5. So we're going
Oh,
to go to.
nice.
I would have gone tonight, but we're doing this
Mhm.
on this night and something else. But we'll go see. I'll go see Fantastic Four, which is. I've already seen the whole movie, so I can tell you what's going to happen. With the five trailers, but we'll see a movie all summer long because they're $5. With that price point where we live, we're basically catching a matinee after hours on
That
a
might actually
Tuesday.
be worth me driving out there. It's save me money than going to
I
the
mean,
Cardinal
as
Theater.
all right.
But getting to some benchmarks, let's compare Superman's opening weekend to prime Marvel opening weekends. Okay. I want to do this for a reason because I want to give people an idea of where it sits against prime comic book movies.
Also a different time, but go ahead. I mean,
Different time.
we're not in the same era or
I agree, and I was gonna hit that on the way out, but you beat me to it, so thank you for that. Um, Avengers Endgame, $357 million domestically, 1.2 billion globally. Black Panther, 202 million in it domestically, 371 million. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is actually one that's most comparable. Came out in 2023. It was James Gunn's swan song. 118 million domestically, 289 million globally. So very much on par with a James Gunn movie. Now you could argue that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 post COVID, a little bit of pointed diminishing returns on the brand and all that kind of stuff. Um, I thought this was interesting. Captain Marvel had $153 million domestic and 456 million globally. But again, those movies were all leading in to Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. So it was like again prime Marvel. All right. Now let's compare this to one movie in particular that I want to get to, and I got to go through my. Well, before I do that, let's compare it to other Superman films. Man of Steel did 116 million in its opening weekend. If you adjust that for inflation, actually, that I had ChatGPT do this. It actually they would have done 150 million dollars on 2025 inflation. So Superman 2025 would not have broken Man of Steel's opening weekend record based on inflation. Superman Returns did 52.5 million opening weekend and only which would have been 80 million adjusted for inflation. I'm not even going to acknowledge Superman: The Quest for Peace or Superman 3. Um, Superman the movie 1978 did $7.5 million opening weekend. And
My
that would
the second movie I ever saw, by the way,
Nice.
yeah. So
in the
by
theater.
all standards, this movie financially has done much better than any of the predecessors that have come out. But again, as we suggested a few minutes ago, the bar was low. Um, Now there is another movie I want to compare it to, and I mentioned I've been teasing this throughout the show, and that's Iron Man. And why do I want to do that? Because I think both movies were faced with very similar challenges. Iron Man came out in 2008, and we were in the era of hyper realism for superhero movies. Batman Begins had just come out. Um, it was competing against The Dark Knight in the same year, which was, again, trying to be very hyper realistic. What is a superhero like in the real world if Superman existed or Batman existed? We were coming off of, for Marvel, it specifically, they were potentially going bankrupt again. You were coming off of the Raimi Spider-Man movie trilogy. You were coming off of
Downey
a really bad X-Men movie, The Last Stand, and some other properties, Fantastic Four and The Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Downey was Downey was kind of a wild card to pick him because
He was a massive wild card. Favreau was unproven. I mean, he just did Zathura. So I mean, there was a lot at stake. And if anybody knows the history financially behind this, basically how this went down was Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios, as an independent studio, went to Morgan Stanley and basically used all of Marvel's IP as like you would in a real estate deal. They used it as like collateral. And they basically said, like, give us $500,000 to go make a movie and build a studio. And if it doesn't work out, you have access to all this IP that you can go and license out. And it worked. So the movie drove, pulling up my sheets here. Hold on a minute. The movie drove very similar numbers for the first 2 weeks, like Superman, $585 million globally. Um, it had a 97% Rotten Tomatoes score, so actually higher than Superman, and it successfully launched a universe, a Marvel Cinematic Universe. So again, when we go back to the top of the podcast question, did James Gunn do what the movie was intended to do? I don't believe the movie was intended to make a ton of money. I think it will. I think it's projecting it's probably going to hit 625 globally, theatrically, and then when you factor in the aftermarket stuff, how it's going to acquire streaming for HBO Max, merchandising, all that, it'll probably make another 115 million. So it's not just going to break even, it will profit. This movie will be a profit for DC. And again, the question will be, will it spur the studio? And I think the test is going to be what you said, Adam. You have no interest in seeing Supergirl. And that's the next big movie. When does it come out, Justin? You're better at the
It's actually a year from like right around this time, July of 2026 is when it'll be out.
it'll be their July tentpole, right? I mean, I don't think
Mhm.
they have anything. I mean, when's Guardians?
that's
Guardians have before. I don't think Guardians happens before, does it? It's close, right?
Um, are you when you say Guardians, are you talking about Green Lantern or?
Yeah, isn't it called Guardians? I thought it was called Guardians.
No, I think it's called the
Oh,
Lanterns.
yeah, this
Oh,
is
Lanterns.
Yeah,
Lanterns.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Lanterns.
Lanterns is first. Yep,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
like early, like March, around March.
yeah.
But yeah, there's no other movies. Like
yeah,
that's their big DC's big movies. His Supergirl right now.
yeah. So anyway, Iron Man comes out in 2008. It was Marvel was this independent, risk-taking upstart with no track record as a studio. We already talked about all the things that they were up against. The marketplace wasn't good for this at the time. And like I said, it drove on a $140 million budget. It had 98 million opening weekend, 319 million domestic, and 585 million global box office, which is basically what Superman's tracking towards in the first 2 weeks. Both have cinema scores of A. Um, difference in leading actors. I mean, you called it Robert Downey Jr. People knew who he was, but he was like a risk. I mean, a big risk. It was a comeback deal. David Corn Sweat, I think, is that how you pronounce it? Is it
Yeah.
okay?
I
He's a
think a
fresh
better
face.
I think a better analogy is you're wanting to do Iron Man. I think probably Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man might be a better comparison as I mean because the universe is already established and you're kind of jumping into it. We already know about it. Just kind of
Yeah,
doing,
but
but kind of
Spider-Man
that's
had the benefit of having 2.5 to 3 phases of Marvel ahead of it
well.
that it was integrating
His movie,
into.
this Superman movie is kind of like we have that suspension of disbelief. All that history is behind us. It's been going on for. They wouldn't say that they'd been here for 300 years if they don't plan on showing that. There'll be some. They'll show they'll show something. Some of the movies are going to be past movies where it's the same universe. We're just
Mhm.
kind of getting we're dropping in the middle of a universe that has already been established. Whereas that's kind of what happened with Spider-Man. We know all these characters. Everybody knows who Guy Gardner is, or most people are. If you're a passive one, on there. I think that's just kind of I don't know. To me, it's more. This is more of like the Tom Holland universe than comparing it to Iron Man mentally the way I'm seeing it. So
Yeah, I think narratively you're 100% accurate. But I'm thinking it more strategically from a business perspective and all the external factors. I think Iron Man is the best comparison that we can make to the landscape around both studios and where things were. I just think that's interesting, and I wanted to bring that up because again, we're trying to either defend or not this claim of did this movie Superman set out to do what it set out to do? And it's hard for
Mhm.
me to argue that it didn't. I think it did. I think the numbers
Yeah.
suggest it.
What
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Adam, so the Supergirl movie you're not interested in, are you gonna pick and choose, or are you just saying this completely the whole universe you're not interested in?
Yeah.
I'm interested in the Lantern movie because the Lantern Superman's my favorite hero of all time, hands down. I have no him and Captain America, my two favorite. I got Captain America sitting right here. So I like Captain America. I like Superman. Those are my two heroes. But Supergirl coming out with that attitude, and I did the Wikipedia. She's got PTS, and she's going to drink. She goes to drink because she's in pain and all that. I get all that, but they did not sell me on. I have a 14 and a 16-year-old daughter. That's a surly teenager. I'm not going to go see a movie about somebody who's going to be sitting there and if she's saying that to her cousin who's doing that and she's going off to drink because she's in so much pain. There's not there's why would I want to go see that movie? There's not going to be hope. Where's she gonna how's she gonna translate from? Is she going to be a hero? What's her place in the universe? And I just there's nothing there for. It's not because
Yeah.
she's a woman. Or any of that. It's just there's no. They ruined her coming out and doing that. She might as well have flipped it. She may have. I don't think I've seen it twice. She should have flipped him off as she walked around the corner and doing that. There's no desire for me to see that. I think she's a good looking Supergirl. She's not the classic little Barbie one, but she's kind of got that. She's got a weird face, from that makes her kind of different, which is interesting. But it just
Yeah.
I mean, being crude is just not something that I'm wanting from with the big S on your on there. You know, it's not like it's you
Well,
know
that kind of surprises me that you didn't like the Superman aspects more because the whole movie he's about saving everyone. All life is precious to him. That's another thing that I liked about this movie is he's saving the squirrel. He wanted to save the kaiju.
I
He was
I do, but it's also the language, and then I mean he's in that universe where they let where and once again he couldn't beat the kaiju. He had to have help because he's a very powered down Superman, and I think they say in this that Supergirl's actually stronger than him. I think that people have said because that's how, you know, the crypto's jumping on him and jumping on her, and she's not making any noise. I think they're going to establish that she is more powerful than he is, at least strength wise. I just he's not that beacon of
And I don't understand
oh,
that. Like, why couldn't they have done what they did with Man of Steel, made him a super extremely powerful guy, but still had the same love for humanity and squirrels and kaijus and all that kind of stuff? Because that was really the fundamental difference. Why did they have to weaken him? Again, like I asked that question earlier in the show, like he didn't have the supersonic hearing power. It would have been very useful at very, strategic points of the movie. It's almost like they didn't want to have it because they didn't want to have to write that in. It was a
you know what
writing, you know what
you
I
know what
mean?
when he's on that side of the when the crack is, which doesn't make sense. I watched that twice. He does a weird roll. I don't understand. I think
Yeah.
it's bad editing. He's like on the side, but he rolls down that whole thing,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Get up, man, get in the game," or whatever. He goes, "You know, I'm trying, man."
Yeah.
Yeah. He rolls over. I got stuff I'm
he said
working
I'm
stuff
doing
out.
important stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
doing
doing important
important
stuff,
stuff,
man.
man.
That's the
I was
that's
just
the Tom Holland Spider-Man kind
that
of like comparison that I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
you
Yeah. I
you
mean,
you have right
he looks like Henry Cavill and Tom Holland had a baby. Like you
there.
laid them, their faces are very similar, and you know,
Some
I
people
just
might like that.
yeah.
Well, we got to move on. We got to get into the next segment here in a minute, but I want to get the final verdict of one of my questions coming into this is again going back to the opener. Did Sup does this Superman movie do what Iron Man did in 2008? I think it did in two areas. I think reboot tone and trust, yes. I think box office ROI, yes. Where I don't think it has, yeah, and it's yet to be seen. One being the franchise momentum. Iron Man ended, and this was one of my dislikes. Iron Man ended with the Avengers Initiative. You are not alone in this universe, Mr. Stark, and Nick Fury. And I remember seeing that for the first time, going, "Oh my gosh!" I remember everybody in the universe was talking about it. It was like we all knew we're getting an Avengers movie. It's happening. This movie, and it caught on. People were stoked about it. The audience buzz, I think that's where it leads into my next thing. Iron Man ignited a cultural chatter, in my opinion. And Superman, I think, has a lot of engagement right now. It's being liked, but I don't know if it has that evangelism yet that Iron Man had. And so I think audience buzz and franchise momentum are the two things that I think just remain to be seen 2 weeks in. It'll be very interesting to see how this carries over the next few months and whatnot. Again, financially, it's fine. We already got the Gods and Monsters Chapter One full slate. These projects are going to get made. Um, it's just going to be interesting to see. And then I still question superhero fatigue. I'm I have to say this, and I don't want to because I'm a fan and I will defend Marvel for the most part. I'm starting to get tired of these movies. Not just Superman. Like I think that was one of the reasons why I initially had a bad reaction the first time I saw Superman was I think I'm just getting tired of these movies. They're all the same. And like I'm nervous about Fantastic Four. I don't want to get into that movie on this show, but like I'm nervous about that one. It looks great. Everything I've heard, they say it's probably the best thing Marvel's done since Endgame and blah 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 blah. But so like I have a lot of I'm trying not to have too high of expectation because Fantastic Four is one of my absolute favorite comic books of all time. I mean, it's just that and Spider-Man and Green Lantern and The Flash and of course Superman. Like those are my favorites. So it's hard for me to not have high expectations. But anyway, um, that let's segue into the final segment because we got to just move on. And I'll combine these two things. James Gunn. Do we think he's going to direct another movie? Do we think he's going to direct Superman 2? Do we think he's going to do another film within DCU? I don't think anybody's really asked that question yet, or I haven't heard anybody ask that a lot. Was this just his way of saying, "Hey, I'm the boss and I want everybody to kind of see the template and here it is," and then hand it off? And then the last question I'll ask you guys is, do you think the fan base was rewarded? And do you think, more importantly, were new fans created? That to me, I think is the big, big question. So have at it. I'm going to sit back and listen.
Tell us, Adam. Tell us.
Well, I'll talk all night. So, the last thing you said was interesting. Finally, no, I'm just kidding. No, the did a new fan base get started? No, not at all. I don't think so. I'd be curious. You know what you should do is do a deep dive into toy sales and merchandising. Um,
Yeah, I have
you
some
know,
numbers on that, at
they
least
had a.
forecasted numbers.
I saw where they had a crypto toy with like the thing that flew around. There was kind of a
Mhm.
ball that kind of flew around. It was kind of chaotic. It would go all over the place. But um,
We
I
bought
mean,
shirts. My kids wanted shirts. They wanted toys and stuff. So I actually think like it is appealing to my children. However, they did not like the movie. In fact, I can't, I had to mention this again, polling two kids, a 5 and a 3-year-old. So everybody take it with a grain of salt, people. I don't want comments about my children. Okay. But I asked them, I said, Superman or F1 the movie, which one did you like better? You know what they said? F1 the movie.
hmm.
They loved that movie.
both,
Speed,
both,
cars,
both my
they loved it.
we saw Jurassic Park and we saw Superman, and I think I'm pretty sure both my girls liked Jurassic Park better. It was just
I,
more. It was more going on. It was
yeah.
more. It was. I mean, the dinosaurs all look
Minus
like
the
they're.
stupid Snickers bar that just like incited the entire incident, which I can't get over that, but that's the
Yeah.
podcast for another
Well,
day.
well,
I mean,
well. My
seriously, that
thing.
was the stupidest thing ever. Like I've been in a clean room. They would never let anybody in a clean room with a Snickers bar inside their suit. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
dumbest thing. And that's like literally how the movie starts. So like, what are we
Well,
doing?
but the other thing is all of the they had the Special Olympics of dinosaurs, every one of those. So they were really they were just they were terrible. So anyway, but I don't know. I don't feel like
That's
I don't
awesome.
I don't feel like it created any new people, and I mean it's going to do well because I think we're in an era now of people are going to start going back to movies. I
Yeah.
think their movies are too expensive, but like we are, someone paid for my other movie. It was part of it was
But it's not
kind of like
safe to do anything else. So go to the movie.
right. Well,
So
but I would have 100% waited for that movie to come out. There was not any extra enjoyment to see Superman on a big screen. If to go, I didn't see it in IMAX. I did see we did see it in 3D, one, and then do the other because people wanted to see it in 3D. It didn't give any extra enjoyment at all. It was kind of boring. Why do and like things kept taking me out of the movie that shouldn't have. Like
mhm.
why were they on the beach wearing Hawaiian
I couldn't figure that
t-shirts?
out. The Hawaiian shirt. Katie, my wife asked that same question. She's like, "Why is everybody wearing Hawaiian
I was
shirts?
like,
What
because
is that?"
and what it is they're thinking at Universal when you go there and they're doing rides. The people who when they make the new Superman ride, those
Yeah.
people will be wearing those shirts.
Oh,
So I
they
mean,
were planning. Yeah, I
it
get what
may
you're
be
saying.
marketing
Yeah.
genius, but I think there was way too much dog. I mean, I didn't have a problem with him having him and even the dog being goofy. I think with him biting his feet and he's trying to get away when his in the CGI and his foot got this long in there and I even saw it in the movie. I was like, what's going on with his foot? Like it stretched out. And none of that. There was just too much dog, and the fact that he just could not win a fight without somebody's help. Like
Yeah.
bootstrap. I like Lois. You're talking about the scene where he had the dimensional imp in the background. He's like, no, they got this. I mean, those were good. Those were good visually. That was a great scene. But just like there was just like it was all these little pockets, and we talk. I didn't talk about Lex Luthor. He was good until the end, and then he kind of just turned into this sniveling little nobody, right? I mean, he just was like, oh, I know it's that. I mean, he was like this. He was like J5 7 9 3 2. He learned all of his moves, everything he possibly could do, and then all of a sudden he just kind of collapsed. He just folded. Like it's like he was almost like trying to get a plea for insanity. and the city, the cracks come into his building, and he's ultimately, I think Luther is misunderstood. I think that he really does want what's best for humanity,
He's an
but he
evil
just has
Tony
a
Stark. I mean,
he just has a he has a core uh, 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 inferiority complex with Superman. He knows that he cannot be as powerful as him, but ultimately, I don't know if you ever saw Red Sun. That there's a motion graphic comic on YouTube. It's great. He basically he's like, he goes, I here, give this to the president. I just cured cancer. It's gonna balance the budget. That's the you know what I'm talking about. That's the Luther
Yeah.
I want to see, and that he was not that Luther. He was very smart up to a point, but then he was like a. It's like everybody was like a teenage, like an immature teenager. Superman,
yep.
Lois. Oh, I knew this wasn't going to work. Our relationship wasn't going to work, And then you got the girl doing the selfie pictures and stuff like that, which I thought was hilarious. I thought that was, but he was brought down because this girl's a criminal. I mean, a mastermind of taking it. I don't know. The whole thing was just a hot mess, and I, I don't have to see it. I don't have to see the movie again. And it's funny. I've seen it twice. I think Kevin's seen it twice. You've seen it like 17 times because you're on the DC payroll. But I mean, ultimately, if you haven't seen it, I would wait. I would wait for it to come out on Max, and then and I probably will see Supergirl. It'll probably be, but I'm going to wait and kind of get. Is it going to be a rated R? I'm excited about a rated R Clayface that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. Is it going to be really rated R? Like he's going to be, what's going to make that rated R? It's a horror film. That's exciting. But I also know that I'm going to see a rated R, and it's going to be potty mouth movie, and that's or whatever, however they decide, bloody, gory, whatever. But just the
Yeah, I
universe they
mean,
build, the universe they build is kind of boring to me. It's
I
not it's not very exciting.
I think the
So
marketing of this movie is what's really bothered me. Like again, because like the when I watched every single trailer outside of like the action scenes that they showed, I was like, I think my kids will be okay with this. I mean, they saw Avengers and they enjoyed it. They've seen Guardians of the Galaxy and it was fine. But the one thing about Guardians of the Galaxy when they did those trailers, you had the scenes of where it's blacking out the middle finger. You had the
right,
a-hole
right,
reference. So you knew you knew the irreverency you were getting into with that
yep.
movie. This movie was sort of a bait and switch for me. Color, tone wise, everything, it looked like a family friendly superhero movie. And then I get in there and there's poo-poo language,
The
there's
guy gets shot in
headshots,
headshot.
there's, you know, girlfriends being kept in prisons, weird green alien babies in pocket universes and
Well, the thing is, and,
um
and that's actually canon. I mean, that's his
no,
that's
that's
his baby.
fine. I get that. I don't care if it's
Yeah.
canon. I'm just saying my kids were creeped out about the green alien baby. They were like, and then you had the
I gotta, I
the
gotta
hair
say,
the harem
I gotta
thing.
say that the Green Baby was there was a toy that was released before the movie,
Uh-huh.
and there was pictures and also in trailers. So that not being prepared for that was in the marketing that there was a
Well,
weird green
so,
baby.
so here's
Well,
the
no,
thing.
I didn't care
Well,
about the
hold
weird
on.
green baby. I'm just telling you my kids were
So so
more off that.
I wouldn't say that the green baby was a problem. The fact that the green baby was being held by a weird man in a cage
That
as
was weird.
that's
Yeah.
the part that I didn't have a problem. I'm not racist against little green big head babies.
Well,
What I
that's
was
where I'm
my
going with
problem.
that. My kids
It
were
was just
like concerned
he's
about the
like
baby like
I'm
being
gonna
held captive.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna hurt your baby if you don't do what I tell you to. That's just
Yeah.
it's odd.
Well,
For
that's just showing you that Lex Luthor is insane. Like that's
Yeah.
showing you the
oh
level he's willing to go to. So I didn't have a problem with that.
So,
And it
so
is
so
a
hold on,
you get
Let's clip that. Vactor doesn't have a problem with kidnapping babies to get a means to an end. So go
okay.
ahead, Vactor. So go
Now
ahead.
I
I'm
want
sorry.
I
Go ahead.
want Justin to have the last word because we got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Justin,
Well,
you get the last take.
I think the Iron Man comparison is correct. And the other one, you can go in the opposite direction. I think Man of Steel is another comparison because that was setting up the Snyder universe,
Mhm.
and everything that came out of the DCEU was from Man of Steel. And so you can look at this movie, and obviously we're going to be looking back on it after everything comes out. Right now, we just have this one movie to go off of. But if we're looking at the comparison of Iron Man, I think that was a success for what led to the MCU. Man of Steel, you can like that movie, but I don't think that was a successful launch pad for the DCEU and everything that came after it. I don't think Man of Steel was a good like foundation for that universe. And there's a lot of things in that movie that's also PG-13. There's also SHIT.
Oh
There's
yeah.
the
I won't let my kids watch Man of
DICK. There's
Steel.
ASS.
Yeah.
So they're both rated PG-13, and I think they're along the same lines. But I think this is going to be a more successful foundation. And the approach being different on the way that they're approaching this DCU versus the Man of Steel Zack Snyder universe. Like Adam said, having a horror movie, having all these different takes, and it's like you're reading different comic books. I like that approach, and I like James Gunn saying we are not going to shoot stuff until the script is done, which you
Mhm.
would think would just be a no-brainer, but we saw what's happened with Marvel lately on the
But
recent
I just
movies.
want to be very clear. I've been on my fair share of movie sets, big movies and small movies. And James Gunn can say whatever he wants to say about it having a finished script. Every single movie I've ever been on, there's a writer on set and they are updating scenes. There's blue pages, there's pink pages, there's white pages. They're doing rewrites in the middle because something ends up not working that they thought was going to work and they
Except during
have
the
to
strike.
rewrite it.
Except during the
So,
strike.
so this whole James Gunn coming out and putting this line in the sand of why he's going to do things differently than Marvel, I, I just think like people need to settle down on that, right? Like, because I think it's creating a crap storm between a DC Marvel debate that doesn't need to happen, in my opinion. Marvel's lack of success post Endgame has nothing to do with lack of finished scripts. It has everything to do with the fact that they have way too much going on. And I think Kevin Feige's made the right decision. He came out and said it. We're going to talk about it in a later date of we're getting rid of all these shows. We're focusing on making movies. That's what we started with doing. That's our core competency. We're going to make movies. And we're only going to put 1 to 3 out a year. Like that's the model. Now, how you get there is how you get there, you know, and you got enough talented directors and producers and creatives and stuff like that. Iron Man was great, and they didn't even have a script. I know for a fact they didn't have a script. So, and it was still a good movie.
Well, I
So,
think that was the exception. Like that's you
yeah.
can't base your entire universe off of okay, that movie worked, so we're gonna do the rest of them like that. Like
Yeah, but
it's like a batting
they had a
average.
script for Avengers. They had a script for other ones. It's just they made changes as they go, and that's just the way it is sometimes. So,
Yeah.
I just don't want this whole script thing to become a deal. But anyway, last words really quick because we got to get out of here.
Yeah. Well, I think there hasn't been enough in this episode, in this podcast, talked about that the core central message of this movie is
Kindness.
it is okay to be kind to people, to let your upbringing be who you are. You make the decisions in your life. You be who you want to be, and it's not your predetermined path of you have to be an a-hole or like you have to do this. I love that the movie's message is you can be who you want to be and be a good person. That's the core message of this movie, and I think that is important.
All
So
right, we got to close this out. Everybody, thank you so much. I nerd you, Mr. Major Zero, Adam Joyner, and Vactor from the Vactorverse for being on our Superman episode this season 3. You can catch us. Make sure, first off, subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Like and share if you're listening to this on Spotify, and you can check us out on Substack. You can read our articles. You can also find us on Letterbox, where we also write reviews. And wherever you listen to your podcasts, we're also there as well. And of course, Twitter, Instagram, and everywhere else. This has been the Fuse Film Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Collin. We got a lot of great stuff coming up the rest of the year for our season 3, so stay tuned. We're really excited. Next episode, I'm going to tease. We're going to go into depth on the Top Gun marketing model for Top Gun Maverick and how that movie should be the standard for every other movie moving forward. So we'll go into that. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate